Good morning and welcome back to 2 News Today on Dayton CW. I'm Dan Edwards. Our time now 8:19, and Jamie says enjoy today's weather because it goes downhill from here. Her forecast is just minutes away, but right now we are joined by Phil Parker, President and CEO of the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. And good morning, Mr. Parker.
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great.
Glad to have you on here on a Monday morning. And I want to get your impressions on the sequestration cuts and how it's going to affect the Dayton region. And let's start out with first locally. The Obama administration says now that this year alone, Ohio would lose nearly $70 million in federal funding, with the bulk of the cuts in education. The White House says Ohio would lose about $25 million for primary and secondary education, which it says would put about 350 teachers and aide jobs at risk. Plus, the administration says $22 million in funding would be lost for education for children with disabilities. First, Mr. Parker, your thoughts on how these cuts are going to be affecting our state?
Well, I think there's a lot of cuts, more than just the military, more than just defense. I think we all know that. The defense budget is 18% of the total budget, and they're asking them to make the largest amount of cuts. But it does go beyond that. It does go into education. It goes into security. It goes into other things that affect our state, which could have an effect on the state's budget and some other things that are happening across the state where we're trying to kick ourselves and move forward.
Right, with the loss of General Motors and some of the other businesses that have left, it's been tough to pick ourselves back up. Just when we think we get some footing, this happens. So let's boil it down a little bit further now in the Dayton region. These cuts are going to be a tremendous blow. We have heard Wright-Patterson inside and out the gates about 13,000
will be
furloughed. So those are current numbers as far as you're concerned.
That's right.
So what else are you seeing there as well? Any additional cuts that might be coming down?
Well, the concern is certainly for those men and women that work inside the fence, and there's certain ones that won't get cut, security and some other things. Blue suiters, I think, might be exempt, but those are mostly civilian workforce that are going to be furloughed, and that has a tremendous amount of economic impact to our region. We're thinking that it could easily be, when you look at the rippling effect, it could be more than $250 million, with a B, $250 million worth of economic impact. But Dan, that doesn't tell the whole story, because it doesn't talk about what happens outside the fence to some of those projects that people are working on. Do those things start to be removed? If they say it's a 10 or a 20% cut depending on the program, that could actually eliminate a whole program if it doesn't have the full funding. So it could actually have a lot more effect outside the fence on top of what's inside the fence.
Well, the pillars of our economics in this community are feds, eds, and meds.
Right, and they're going to all be affected. That's right.
So what can we do sitting here on this Monday? Friday's the deadline.
Right.
Are you still hearing that Friday is the day that these cuts will take effect?
I'm still hearing Friday is the deadline. I'm still hearing that they are indeed going to take effect. I wish that wasn't true, but at the very best, you know, they're going to have to give folks notice that they're going to have to be furloughed. So we could be looking at easily April at this point, maybe March or April. But this is going to take a little while for the federal government to figure out. But we need to put the right degree of pressure on the administration to make sure that our legislative leaders understand our position and that we are a military town and we can't allow this to happen.
Mr. Portman's in town. Mr. Turner was in town last week on recess.
That's right.
Is the lack of representation hurting us right now?
I don't think so. Those are really good leaders, and I think that they have a really good perspective. I think it's folks coming together, putting them in a room and saying, we cannot allow this to happen. We've got to figure out something. And we, you know, they're not really even identifying some of the root problems, and that's some of the other cuts that may have to be made with entitlements and other things. So there needs to be some real work on this thing, and now we're down to the last wire once again, like we were the physical cliff here at the end of last year. Here we are right down to the 11th hour.
We feel like pawns in a massive game, don't we?
That is the truth. You're right, Dan.
The way I feel about it. Well, Mr. Parker, President and CEO of the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you for your leadership in very challenging times.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.